As the voting of the next president is expected to get underway in the National Assembly. For more analysis on what has transpired today, we're now joined by political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng, and she joins us now via our video link. Asanda, thank you so much for your time this evening. It has certainly been a very long day for those at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, and we finally saw the Speaker of Parliament now being voted in, as well as the Deputy Speaker. Perhaps just take us through the nomination, as well as, of course, the election thereof, firstly of Thoko Didiza.
Well, I think it's been a very interesting day in that there was a moment where it looked like perhaps things were not going to go in the way of what's becoming clearly a DA, IFP, and ANC coalition or attempted government of national unity. But, after the EFF did make nominations together with the ATM, those didn't go very well, with Thoko Didiza of the ANC finally making it in the end to be nominated as the Speaker. And then the same situation happened with the DA member, who has now been nominated as the Deputy Speaker. And I think, if you're watching social media and all the other platforms, the EFF, you'll know, just recently posted that they're now going to be going for an impeachment of the president before the president has even been elected, and that process being finalized, because I think they're realizing that perhaps they are not where they want to be as a political party, and that maybe they may have scuppered their chances of getting into this cabinet and truly becoming part of this government, because I think it's becoming clear even to voters that they did have the opportunity, but that they scuppered it, much as even the MK is facing the same accusations, that they had the opportunity to engage with the ANC, much like all the other political parties, but they chose not to take it up.
And, coming to that thought, looking at that motion that was sent through by the EFF's Deputy President Floyd Shivambu, and of course bringing up the Phala Phala matter again, let's talk about the timing of all of this, just after we've seen the Speaker from the ANC, as well as the Deputy Speaker from the DA now being elected. What does this all mean, especially for this administration?
Well, I think the EFF is trying to show itself to be, they've already said that they're not going to participate in the government of national unity that's been mooted. They don't see it as a government of national unity, but rather they see it as a DA, ANC and IFP coalition. And in that case, they've decided that they're going to be the opposition and effectively take over from the DA, who has been the opposition party since 1994. And I think that they're showing by starting to want to table issues like Phala Phala and the various kind of moves that they made today, including calling for transparency and having, until eventually the compromise of having party agents observe rather than the secret ballot being done and only one person finally being able to be in the room for the final count. I think that they're trying to show themselves to be in opposition. We're seeing a very different EFF to the one that we used to. So they are, making some interruptions and they are challenging the rules, but they're doing it in a completely different manner to what we used to. And I think even that attempt to try to get one of their own to be the Speaker was also another attempt to what Julius Malema told us they were doing, that they were no longer going to be the party that's just disrupting, and that 10 years after entering Parliament, they are maturing as a party and are looking for a completely new role.
And Asanda, we finally saw documents, doing the rounds when it comes to the government of national unity, and of course that being signed by the ANC as well as the DA. What does it also mean when it comes to this coalition that some are even saying that it's quite clear that this is a grand coalition between the likes of the ANC and the DA? Where does it leave, the other political parties who are saying that they are part of this government of national unity?
Well, I'm sure, more details are going to come out of that, because remember, they're going to elect the president and then they will have time to actually convene a government. And so we'll start seeing names of cabinet members and start seeing just how the spread is done in terms of the cabinet, who has received what position. We'll also start to hear more about the role that the other parties are going to play. But we've already seen in KZN, for instance, that the IFP got some of the nominations for the deputy speaker, and in fact they ended up getting the premiership. An IFP member is now the current premier of KZN, and also there was some movement around the speaker itself between the ANC and its various seeming alliance members. So we're seeing the movements of this emerging alliance in KZN, we're seeing it in Gauteng, and I'm sure when we do the final tally of all of the provinces, and of course even tomorrow when we go to the national, to the NCOP, that we're going to see this alliance play itself out further. It's going to be interesting to see how the political parties that are outside of this coalition are going to respond and the ways in which they're going to play. But for me, what's very interesting is that for the first time in South Africa, we're going to get the main opposition being a black party, but also, a grouping of black parties that seem to be keen to form a bloc that will be challenging, engaging, and critiquing every step that the DA, the ANC, and the IFP and the various other coalition members will be taking, which is only going to be good for South Africa's democracy, because the more eyes that are on these deals, the more people who are willing to, hold government accountable regardless of its formation, the better it is for the country. And so in some ways, the ANC did get what it wanted, which is that it wanted everybody to come to the table, and it wanted everybody to get to a position where they were working for South Africa. And in calling for a government of national unity, it forced everyone to come out and declare their position. And so we're going to see now potentially a more robust parliament, potentially a more robust democracy. And this is in part the change that people wanted, even though there are fears with people calling this coalition apartheid 2.0. I do think, though, that people need to understand that the ANC and the DA are not that far apart when it comes to specificities of ideology. For example, when it comes to the economy, they both believe in neoliberal policies. The only difference is that the ANC has a socialist stance and, engages more in conversations around the grant system and has been giving out grants for various members of society that it deemed unable to participate in the economy. And I think what's going to be interesting to see is how the EFF is going to use its own radical policies to try and challenge the neoliberal economics that's likely to be coming out of the DA and ANC coalition. But I think what's also going to be interesting to see is how the DA and the ANC navigate their huge differences when it comes to foreign policy, particularly on the issue of Israel and Palestine, where they're on opposite sides, and the issue of Ukraine and Russia, where they are also on opposite sides. So these are going to be the issues that have potential to break or make this coalition. But I think it's also important to note that in South Africa, we really should count ourselves lucky that despite all of the tension, despite all of the upheavals, and even people being outside some of these parliaments, that there doesn't seem to have been violence or any real major disruption that actually stopped this process completely, as there were fears that there might be before the parliament actually sat.
All right. Asanda, thank you so much for your time this evening. That's political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng just giving us an insight in terms of what has transpired today at the first sitting of the National Assembly of the 7th Administration.